You realise that you know all that already, and that it's you talking.
Yes.
But the fact that you are personifying that, that individual, you tell yourself what you need to hear and what you need to do.
Absolutely.
And you know that. It's very. It comes from inside.
Absolutely.
Really.
And it's
very powerful.
Quite far back, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the unconscious.
Yeah.
Unconscious mind.
Very nice, thank you. Any other realisations, learnings, discoveries? What else? Yes.
For me, it helped me to convince myself that I am capable of doing it. Or even if there is no final that other alternative means or steps I can take.
And the thing is, if you just said to yourself, yeah, of course you can do it, it wouldn't work, would it? It's kind of like you have to have that stepping out of it and give yourself that perspective on it for it to work effectively, yeah? Yeah. Any more for any more? Any other little light bulbs that went off in here today?
Concrete steps.
Yes.
Towards achieving it. Really, when you get advice, as it were, then it looks so much easier, and then there's a plan at the end of it.
Absolutely. So actually, in a kind of goal-setting perspective, it's giving you some tangible steps to work towards and to move towards as well. Good. Do you see how an exercise like this might be useful for parents? Yeah. Could it be useful for teachers? Yeah, to understand, the perspective of their young people in their classroom, for example. Before we go for a break, I'll tell you a story actually about a real-life scenario where I used this technique with a family. And it was an interesting family scenario. So there was mum and 2 children that came to see me. Dad never came to the sessions because he was always at work. He was a very busy man. Mum was very stressed out, and she was also unwell. So she was exhausted. She was zapped. There was no energy left in her. And the 2 boys were completely opposing in their personalities. They were on different ends of every conceivable spectrum of personality. Partly, I suspect, because they weren't actually true brothers. So the older child was an adopted child, and he was 11 years old, very introverted in his personality. The younger one was a birth child. He was 8 years old, and he was an extrovert in his personality, and he made sure the whole world knew about it as well. So they had very different characters, and the issue that they came to see me with was that they were winding each other up a lot. A lot of the time they were feuding and arguing, and Mum was stressed out and just not able to cope with them anymore. So she brought the 2 boys in to see me, and she said, well, this one, he hardly ever talks to us. He's in his shell all the time. We get no words out of him whatsoever. If there's a problem, we don't know about it. You're just locked away in there, aren't you? And he went, like this. And she went, whereas this one, he's completely the opposite. He's right up there in your face all the time, and he's bouncing off the walls. You're very hyperactive. We don't know if he's got ADHD or something like that, but there's something going on because he's bouncing off the walls, aren't you? And he went, like this. So you could kind of instantly see that they were these 2 very different characters. And in my mind, I decided that I was not going to work with these 2 boys at the same time, because managing the energy levels in the room was going to be a challenge. So I decided that I would actually work with the older one first, because I had a bit of a mind read that he might pose more of a challenge for me, because he was really introverted and non-communicative as well. And I decided to use this technique. But we used it in the context of his family circumstances. So we had quite a few chairs going on in the room that day. Because there was a chair for him, then there was a chair for him to be his brother, there was a chair for him to be mum, a chair for him to be dad, and then the observer chair as well. So there was a lot of chairs happening that day. Now, when he started off by being himself, I won't lie to you, it was like getting blood out of a stone, because he just didn't engage with me. There was no eye contact, lots of shrugs, lots of grunts, but not an awful lot else, so I wasn't getting very much from him. But then he moved around to the chair where he was being his brother, and something happened. The chairs in my office are like, probably therapy chairs, and they spin and they have wheels on and all of this stuff. And in being his brother, he he decided to capitalise on that, such that I ended up with footprints up the wall where he'd been spinning himself around in the chair whilst taking on his brother's personality and telling me how he saw the world in a very fast-paced, speaking, shouty type voice. Next chair that we went to showed a complete contrast, because in the next chair he was being mum. Now, what did I say about mum? Tired and unwell. So he went from being high energy to nothing, and he started doing her illness. He started doing that complete lack of energy. And again, I asked him, what does your family look like? What's it like to be there? And so on. And he expressed some of the stress and discomfort that there would have been for her. But one of the most interesting things was when he got round to the next year where he was being dad. What did I tell you about dad? Dad's not around yet. Dad's at work a lot. So I said to Dad, tell me about your family. What's it like to be there? And he started to answer the questions. And then partway through answering one of them, he went, oh, just excuse me a second. Hello? No, she's got to go to family therapy now, so I'll probably get the reports up. And I watched him taking an imaginary telephone conversation in the middle of my session. So I tapped him on the shoulder and I went, I'm really sorry, but do you think you could call them back later? And he went, no, I'm going to have to call you back. Sorry, carry on. So I asked the next question. And as he was answering the next question, he reached into his pocket again and he pulled out his imaginary mobile phone. He started to type out an email or a text message. And I tapped him on the shoulder and I went, I'm sorry, this is actually quite important. Do you think you could put that away for later, please? And he went, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, carry on. So he started to give me a very clear message, very clear picture about how he saw his family life. But the best thing was when he moved around to the final chair, so the observer's chair. And I said, so, Mr. Observer, tell me what you notice about this family. And he said, well, that man doesn't spend enough time with those boys. When they go to the park, that man's always on his phone. He's always working. He's never watching them. He doesn't know what they're doing. And that boy doesn't know that that man is proud of him. So I was making lots of notes, as you can imagine, whilst this was going on. And when Mum came back in at the end, I shared the notes with her and said, this is what he's said today, this is what's come up. And Mum said, yeah, I kind of knew that. I knew that's what the problem was. But the thing is he's my husband. If I say it to him, he doesn't listen because it's me. But now I can go back and tell him that this is what you've seen, then actually that might make the penny drop. And luckily it did. The boys ended up coming on some of our workshops after that, and I worked with them for a while longer in a different kind of context. And we did one of these events where I wasn't actually able to tell this story. Guess who was in the audience? Never met Dad to this day. But Mum. Yeah, Mum went on to do some training with us, and she got better, though I'm not taking credit for that one as well. But things did change in their family dynamics, and it was just because they needed an opportunity to take those filters out of the way, remove those contact lenses, and to start seeing things for how they really were. Does that make sense to you? Yeah? Good. Have you had a good morning so far? Fabulous. You're now going to go for a break, get yourselves recaffeinated, zip to the loos, which are just down there, and we will be back here for 11:30. So you have a 15-minute break, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you very much.
I'll just see you
Yes.